My name is Kim Whitehurst. This blog too is about professional identity. I started working in education 6 years ago. I was given the role as a teaching assistant in Key Stage 1. There was a variety of tasks that I was given for this role, which included supporting the teachers and children throughout each lesson, and it even came to times where I would take a group out and work with the group if they was finding things difficult and needed it explaining in a lot more detail. There was also times where I would work one-to-one with certain children that was at a low ability, but even the children that was a high ability to further those on. I was also given the day-to-day guidance on how to help with all the children and all the work that they needed. After a year of being a TA, I was asked by the head teacher if I would like to go further up and be a high-level teaching assistant, which at the time came a bit daunting because I wasn't quite sure what the role would involve, but I was given the specters of the high-level teaching assistant and what was actually required of me, which there wasn't a very much more I would be doing apart from doing the marking of the lessons that I would be taken, planning with the teacher and looking at the curriculum and making sure that everything was, all the work that was based around the curriculum that was given. I was transferred through to lower key stage 2, where I was a high-level teaching assistant there too, where I would teach lessons, but it occurred where I would actually teach year 3 and 4. I wasn't given a specific year to work in. And after a matter of time, there was a child that came quite volatile and his behaviour was very disruptive. And the head approached me to see if I would want to work with the child one-to-one to support him and give him a lot more guidance that was needed. At first, the role came very hard and difficult because the outbursts he had would be quite violent. He would hit, he would kick, he would spit, and a number of other things that he would do. But what we learned that there were certain lessons and work that we needed to adapt for his capability, which would make him less likely to have the outbursts, because the majority of them were down to the frustration that he was getting because the work was too hard for him. During the 6 years, I have had time to reflect on what I want to do and how it's made me look at me as a practitioner, but also as my career for further down the line. And the head approached me and asked if I would wanted to do some training on team teaching, which would involve me on handling children correctly and making sure that if the children was acting or behaving in an appropriate way, I could move them correctly, but also I was making sure the child was safe as well as myself and other children around. And it came quite useful because obviously the child did end up having to go to another school to cater for his needs because he wasn't right for mainstream school. However, I did approach the head to ask for further training because I was given another child in year 4 that was not necessarily violent, but he had ADHD, so his concentration skills was pretty poor and he couldn't do the things that was asked. So I had to speak to a bunch of multi-agencies that he was involved with, as well as his family, and attend various meetings that would make me have to give his explain his processes of how he was working and the way that things was adapted. So and the things that I put in place, like reward charts and reward time, where there was times would be where he would pick what he wanted to do, but there was a case of if he hadn't done what he had to do previously, for example, a piece of work, then he would lose that reward time. But also the fact of consequences would be that he had to understand that there was consequences as well as rewards for that work. So there was many issues and challenges that I was confronted throughout my roles. But as the time's gone on, it's a case of I found take it through a pinch of salt. Everything is a learning curve, and you adapt your ways and the child's ways to make sure it's successful and safe, and the child gets the sufficient care, need and support that is necessary for them. There has been times where I have had to support other practitioners, because over the time, especially as a Hill to where I was teaching, I would have other practitioners with me, and I would sometimes let those do what they wanted to do. If there were certain ideas that they put in place, I would tell them that I would let them do it, but I would guide them and support them in what was necessary. And any advice or anything like that that they needed, I would try my best to be able to give them the sufficient information that there was required. My perspective of professionalism would be that it's not always necessarily about what your qualifications you have. It's about your experience in you as a person, because every individual person is different. And I find that especially over the last 6 years, and we've had quite a lot of turnover of staff with a mixture of qualifications, and I do work with a vast amount of people, and each one of us may have degrees, we may have no qualifications whatsoever, but we all are there for one purpose, and that is to support the kids, to support the children, the parents, and also to make sure that they all have the sufficient needs that is there. And I do find that if you are a person that wants to learn and further yourself, then there is a lot of support out there for that, and the AHEAD does provide training and necessary advice on courses. Like, I do know that currently I'm helping a girl that's just started her foundation degree, and I advise her on certain stuff that I've previously done and guidance, because I know how daunting it was for me as myself when I first started. So I know that it's the same for her. So I provided her with textbooks and stuff like that to help. There is one thing that I do not agree with, but that's my personal perspective, is that I don't think it's also necessary that a lot of people, a lot of the teachers, especially the head, has employed parents as TAs, and I feel like that can be an issue, because a majority of those do have children within school, and I think the ones that I've come across, it doesn't actually work. But that would be the only criticism that I would possibly have on those.